My position is is technology plus fiat liquidity. Bitcoin is the best expression of currency debasement. Bitcoin trends with this chart. And so if Pomp is to say Bitcoin's going to have lesser upside, then he's implying that this M2 chart is going to flatten or continue to decline, which I don't believe. I don't think that that's sustainable. Bitcoin aside, I don't think this government can, I've already said this, I don't think this government can sustain these debt levels without printing currency. The only way to sustain the fiat system is to continue to debase the currency.
Bitcoin's price has remained stable, unable to break through the $65,000 threshold. Analysts expect higher lows and highs on an hourly basis, but there is not enough momentum for a significant breakout. The $65,000 level is a key resistance point, with significant passive selling and compounding as liquidity. This level shows no weakness and will require strong buying pressure to be breached. Jack Mallers is still bullish about Bitcoin's long-term prospects despite the short-term halt. He examines Bitcoin's relationship with the Federal Reserve money supply and predicts a reversal with rate decreases. Mallers contends that the U.S. government's debt necessitates money printing, which favors Bitcoin. He highlights humility, Bitcoin's resiliency, and decentralized character, in contrast to Wall Street's fiat mindset, and believes that global accessibility will drive Bitcoin's rise. Jack Mallers feels that the current atmosphere supports Bitcoin, which benefits from increasing liquidity. Mallers disagrees with critics such as Pal, who he believes underestimates Bitcoin's potential. He gives examples of businessmen and thought leaders who initially dismissed Bitcoin before adopting it due to financial pressures or recognition of its worth. Mallers also points out Bitcoin's rising market participation, citing several investment vehicles. As we bring you clips from his recent interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
But what we're all looking at is the M2 money supply from the Federal Reserve themselves. And so this is, a really fairly accurate assessment of how many dollars they're issuing, dollar liquidity. And so we can see from when Bitcoin was invented until early 2022, it was a shrieking bull run. I think that when someone like Pomp says returns are getting lesser, the law of larger numbers, they're really not factoring in, this was the largest dip we've seen in M2 money supply ever. I mean, it was the fastest rate hike of all time, right? And look at the retraction in M2 money supply. And so my expectation is that this breaks to the upside, right? And we are starting to see that. Powell is reversing rates. I think that the debt, so my position is Bitcoin's is technology plus fiat liquidity. Bitcoin is the best expression of currency debasement. Bitcoin trends with this chart. And so if Pomp is to say Bitcoin's going to have lesser upside, then he's implying that this M2 chart is going to flatten or continue to decline, which I don't believe. I don't think that that's sustainable. Bitcoin aside, I don't think this government can, I've already said this, I don't think this government can sustain these debt levels without printing currency. The only way to sustain the fiat system is to continue to debase the currency. So as far as options, the one thing I'll say is the freer the market, the better. So the more you allow anyone to speculate, the better price discovery, the better price efficiency. So I think it's a phenomenal thing for Bitcoin. It's very bullish. It's very exciting. You're going to get new market participants. You're going to get new price discovery from existing market participants. So markets want to be free. And so the freer the market, the better the market. And Bitcoin continues to find itself being expressed by all sorts of market participants all over the world with all sorts of different market vehicles. You've got futures, you've got options, you've got ETFs, you've got spot, you've got P2P. So this is natural evolution. I think it's a phenomenal thing. I don't know what Pomp's talking about. And I think that Bitcoin correlates more with the M2. As soon as Bitcoin advantages you is usually when your opinion changes. So, Sailor was sitting on his high horse on his little keyboard and was like, Bitcoin's for criminals and drug dealers, until his company was failing. Then Bitcoin was pretty interesting, right? And so same with Larry Fink. Well, Bitcoin's for criminals and it's burning the earth and everything. It up everything until dollar debasement is reaching levels in which all of his clients and his customers need an exit. Then it's not for criminals. It's not burning the earth at all. So, eventually Bitcoin benefits you. Seriously, like Saylor didn't have very nice things to say until he looked at the COVID crash and realized his company was going under. Then he had great things to say. The reality of the world that we were living in before Bitcoin. If you're an elite, if you're a CEO, if you're a professor, if you're an executive, then you can't be told what's interesting. No one on the street can get something right before you. We live in like a social hierarchy that's predetermined and defined by the fiat spigot. And so Saylor couldn't be bothered to listen to something about Bitcoin until he had to. Fink couldn't be bothered to listen to anything about Bitcoin until he had to. But it breaks everyone's minds because you're supposed to go to college, get on your knees, suck up to your professor, go get an internship, suck up to your boss, go work 9 to 5, suck up. And there's no free market opportunity for humans to collaborate, take risks, innovate, disrupt. And so this just, it's classic. It's classic. But Fink couldn't be bothered until his clients and his customers are like, hey, this level of debasement, I don't care what interest rates are. We're debasing our way out of this thing, and I want to own Bitcoin with my gold.
Jack Mallers emphasized the value of humility when dealing with Bitcoin, declaring, I need Bitcoin more than Bitcoin needs me. He sees Bitcoin as a great humbling force that requires people to recognize they are part of something bigger. Mallers argues that Bitcoin tests one's ego by preferring the greater good over personal interests. Wall Street, based on lies, deceit, and the fiat mindset, contrasts with Bitcoin's free market and technological advancement. He believes that those who are hostile to Bitcoin should reflect on themselves. According to Jack Mallers, Bitcoin's ability to be resilient in the face of rate fluctuations displays its robustness. High interest rates have shown to be inflationary, and the United States cannot afford to keep them this high. Mallers emphasizes the debt-to-GDP ratio, record deficits, and unavoidable currency depreciation while promoting Bitcoin. He contends that Bitcoin's rise is fueled by its decentralized, technical character. Let's watch more clips from Jack Mallers' discussion and gain insights.
It's a really important ethos to embody is that I need Bitcoin more than Bitcoin needs me. That's a very humble thing. I think of Bitcoin too as the great humbling. Is you have to say, I want to be part of something I can't control. I want to be part of something bigger than me. I want to be part of something where my contribution, it pales in comparison to the greater movement. I want to be part of something where I'm not the main character, where I'm not the boss, where I don't have influence. And those that have an inability of coming to that position and stance then have to buy in later and get these humbling moments where Larry Fink's like, yeah, shit, I was wrong. But it is the great humbling. It teaches humility. Really, my opinion, I've said this before, adopting Bitcoin is an ego test. So how much do you value the greater innovation and the betterment of humanity for everyone else versus yourself? Because just saying like, no, I'm right, the world is wrong, is just validating insecurities that you have. Like Bitcoin will highlight who needs to be humbled and who's built their life view based on social hierarchies and bosses and presidents and executives and fiat mindset. Like it just doesn't shock me. Wall Street's built on lies, deceitful, insider trading, penny stocks, paying off regulators, sucking up to government. That's what Wall Street is. That's what it is in the movies. That's what it is that's what Wall Street is. And so they're going to be last to understand the free market, cryptographic, technological movement from the ground up. Bitcoin just like highlights the truth that is. And if you need to be humbled and you don't have the humility to adopt it, then you get punished. So every single asshole and piece of shit that views themselves over the rest of the world and needs to be humbled will be last. So for those that haven't adopted Bitcoin yet, think for a second what it says about them. In my opinion, if someone's outwardly against Bitcoin, attacking Bitcoin, claiming Bitcoin's only for drug dealers, claiming Bitcoin ruins the world, sit for a second, take a deep breath, do some breathing exercises, and think for a second what that says about that person, given the context of this conversation. I don't know. I think that it doesn't matter what direction rates go in. They've both proven
that too.
They've both proven to be inflationary. Like, we lived through, the Fed was at like they did fastest rate hike ever, rates over 5% for 18 months, and Bitcoin went from 20,000 to 70,000. So clearly high rates don't mean that it's bad for dollar liquidity. As soon as the 10-year got to 5%, Yellen came in and slammed the hammer and juiced assets tremendously. So the point is that the U.S. can't afford rates to be very high or go very much higher, because it forces other countries are going to sell their treasuries and their dollar debt, and we can't sustain that. And then obviously rates lower is obviously very bullish for dollar liquidity. So either way, it doesn't matter. The point is there's record amounts of deficits. The point is, back to, I always like the debt to GDP.
Jack Mallers highlights Bitcoin's complex relationship with the Federal Reserve's monetary policy, underscoring the historical correlation between dollar liquidity and Bitcoin's price. While the sharp 2022 downturn driven by aggressive rate hikes was atypical, Mallers expects the tides to turn as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell hints at future rate cuts. Yet Mallers issues a stark warning: the unsustainable debt levels of the U.S. government could trigger a prolonged depreciation of the dollar, making Bitcoin an increasingly attractive alternative in an era of currency devaluation. As Bitcoin flirts with the possibility of a breakout, Mallers' insights on liquidity are particularly relevant. A massive wall of ask liquidity across exchanges, including large sell orders on Binance's spot pair, is being countered by stable bid liquidity between $60,000 and $62,000. This balancing act in liquidity is reminiscent of past cycles, where central bank decisions had ripple effects on Bitcoin's trajectory. Last summer's rate cut, which lasted 219 days, eventually led to a new price high on October 23rd. History may not repeat itself exactly, but as Mallers suggests, the connection between liquidity and Bitcoin is undeniable, and the stars could be aligning once more. Trader Jella, taking cues from Mallers' analysis, questions whether we're witnessing another historical echo. In the days ahead, key economic data, such as U.S. jobless claims, Q2 GDP, and the Personal Consumption Expenditures (PCE) index, could shape Bitcoin's trajectory further. Jerome Powell's speech at the 2024 U.S. Treasury Market Conference is another critical event on the horizon. Traders and analysts remain on edge, awaiting either a breakout or continued consolidation. However, as fear, uncertainty, and doubt persist, one truth remains clear. In a world of depreciating currencies, Bitcoin might just be the lifeboat many didn't see coming. What are your thoughts on this video as Bitcoin continues to make headlines? What drives Bitcoin's growth more? Decentralized nature or economic factors? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video and hit your thumbs on the like button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.